Welcome to B&B with Ellie, Biohacking and Beyond, the podcast where we dive into the incredible world of self-healing and mind-body connection using biohacking and lessons from Germanic New Medicine. Good day, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us in this episode with my very special guest. I'm a little bit starstruck as I am a fan of her work, and we met at Dave Asprey's Biohacking Conference in Pasadena. This was back in 2016 when I was in the middle of my Bulletproof coaching course. She had a light therapy booth there, and I was inspired by her wisdom, her vision, and craft, and I'm so excited to bring this information to our local audience. Let me introduce who she is. She's an international award-winning artist, an engineer, an Eastern medicine physician, visionary pioneer, inventor, and expert in the science of color light therapy, flow state for optimal health, creativity, and anti-aging. Welcome, Leanne Venier. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Ellie. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Leanne, could we start with your origin story? I mean, we could go way back to childhood if that helps paint the picture of the brilliant Leanne that we have in the here and now.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction and the glowing praise. My origin story. Yeah, I guess the one constant throughout my life, because people have seen, this disparate background that I have and an idea of what that's like. But the one constant throughout my life, or I guess a couple of them, is I have always been interested in natural healing. I came out of the womb very non-pro pharma. So I came from a pill popping family where there was a lot of trauma and stress in my household. And I, from a very early age, when my mother would even try to give me children's aspirin for something like a sore throat or who knows what, I would just, say, talk to the hand, Mom. No, I literally wouldn't let her give me children's aspirin. I'm like, I'm not taking that. My body will fix itself. So whatever wisdom I came into this lifetime with, I've always been very much nature, the healing energies of nature. I spent copious amounts of time outdoors to deal with the ongoing stress in my household. But I always looked to nature and natural healing for dealing with anything that would come up. And literally, the polar opposite of everybody else in my family, though. Things like codeine, because I grew up in Canada and you could get codeine over the counter. So we always had large bottles of codeine in my house. Super amazing to come from that background. But so that, and the other thing that's been a constant throughout my life with all the iterations that I've gone through is that I love learning, and I love learning and connecting the dots between disparate fields of study or information, and then sharing my knowledge. So I've been doing that as long as I can remember. Anytime I discover some cool thing about whatever topic it might be, I always want to tell friends, family members, and share that knowledge. So those two constants are pretty much that in my business and everything that I'm doing with my global teaching and helping people. And when I learn something or I connect the dots, because for me, it's very easy to see the connections between things. And I realized as I got older that not everybody sees those connections. So piecing things together and then explaining things in a cohesive manner so people can understand them. I started off, I was very good in math and science and also equally good at right brain creativity and things like that. But because I grew up in a small town in Northern Ontario where women basically were expected to, get married and start having children. And I'm like, no, I want to do more with my life than that. So I decided to become an engineer when it was an extremely unusual thing for women to even be entering into engineering at the time. So I went to Knoll Engineering University, Michigan Tech, where there was like one female I forget what the number, like every 12 males, there's one female, some ridiculous number. So I chose to study engineering because of my, interest in math and science and wanting to do something that was atypical for females at the time. But I also quickly learned after graduating from university, and I worked for Lockheed, among other things. When I was designing submarines for Lockheed, I realized I don't really like working in the corporate realm, and I don't like working in this engineering environment where everybody, the majority of people see black or white without any shades of gray or without any possibility for any kind of creative expansion or looking at things a completely different way. So I left that career, moved to Italy for 7 years and studied all kinds of alternative healing modalities while I was there because I had a phenomenal vast resource of like, which I had to learn Italian to be able to read all the books there because nothing was in English. But yeah, so I spent 7 years studying all these alternative healing modalities, starting with herbology and then moving progressively more from the physical body into the subtle energy realm, working with plant energies and medicine, but not just the physical plants, the energetic aspects. And then things like, how homeopathy works or Bach flower remedies, and moving into that, and then moving into more pranic healing energy medicine, and kind of just going above the physical body, and always with an interest in the psychological connection with illness. So that's kind of another lifelong awareness, and integrating that into all of my healing work. So I started working with patients. I ended up coming back to the States to go back to school for Eastern medicine, Zen Shiatsu, acupuncture, and then I had a healing practice working with cancer patients while I was in British Columbia. I've moved around a fair amount. So
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
But I went from engineering to Eastern medicine, well, to alternative healing to Eastern medicine, throughout all of this, working with patients and clients. And then I decided to move back to Austin, where I had lived. That was where I studied Eastern medicine before moving to British Columbia to finish my studies up there. I chose to move back to Austin, Texas, and that was where, needing to kind of recharge my own batteries, I decided to take a beginner painting class because I wanted to be able to get into flow state and the zone. I trained as a classical pianist as a child, but I didn't have a piano at the time, so I couldn't play piano. I couldn't do any of that. So I was like, I want to be able to get into this pure flow state. I know, it's like, it's just this, it sounds like, and it seems very disparate. Like, okay, you went from engineering to alternative healing, living in Italy, coming back to the States, studying Eastern medicine, and then I start painting. But it's such an integral part of what I'm doing now, the painting becoming, so I take this beginner painting class, discover how to use color to get catapulted into flow state. So I'm creating these paintings as a beginner painter that are beyond, what my capabilities should have been, because I wasn't really creating them, I'm just channeling. And I started getting international recognition without like any effort. I put up like 5 or 6 images of my paintings on a website. And I started getting contacted by international curators, international design magazines, wanting to feature featured artists. And this was all very uncanny how all of this happened. And then when people would see my paintings, they would have these very strong emotional and physiological responses to the paintings, the colors in the paintings. So then they would say, oh my God, I can't stop staring at your red paintings or your blue paintings or your teal painting, whatever color it was. And then I would say, oh, well, if you're really strongly drawn to that color, it might mean you have this going on in your body and this going on in your life. Because of all the things that I had studied and connected the dots, I could tell when people had an imbalance in their energy system, they would crave certain colors that would help to bring them back into balance. So I would tell people one-on-one this in these conversations, as they're having this, like, oh my God, I feel like this is just food for my soul. And they'd go, oh my God, that's exactly what's going on in my body and my life. How do you know that? And I'd be like, because I can tell what's out of balance based on the color energies that you're craving and the colors that you're drawn to. So that's how Catalytic Color, the name of my website, came about, because it's the paintings were a catalyst for all of the stuff that I ended up teaching about.
And I did see a lot of your work in the biohacking conference, but it was more of your photobiomodulation devices. But going into your website, you'll see that there's like a slew of artwork of what you've done, and the commissioned artwork that you've done for corporate as well. This is healing art. And it's always been on my wish list, Leanne, to, order some of the paintings, the actual paintings, and maybe also even the prints, and place them here. Instead, what I did was I just had paintings of colors. So basically, you were the inspiration for that, and I just place it on my walls as part of chromotherapy.
Yeah.
But the real I'm just so interested in how you went from engineer and then to, all these Eastern healing arts, and why Italy of all places? Why did you choose Italy of all places for the, one would think of China or Bali or India or things of that nature, but why Italy?
Well, because I had visited a few times prior to that with traveling around Europe, and there was Italy in general, and then some parts of France where like I just felt like I'm home. This is where I felt energetically. I hadn't felt that kind of connection or resonance with my own energy body anywhere else, whether it was growing up in Canada, California, or the number of places that I had lived. So when I first visited Italy, it was like, oh my God, I could feel like literally my whole energy system came alive. When I was getting very burned out in the engineering realm, feeling just more and more depleted, it's a longer story about how the universe kind of, pushed me in that direction. I really wanted to move there the very first time that I visited. I traveled around Europe. I'm like, I really want to move here. But then life happened and it was kind of like, okay, well, I got talked into here, take this job, and then moved to Italy later. So which is phenomenal because the job that I ended up doing gave me all these life skills that I needed for what I, needed to do for having my own business ever since then. So it was an important role. But then as so often happens, we kind of like push our dream to the back burner, and then it's so easy for it to stay on the back burner. But right. I ended up taking another trip. I was taking a break from engineering, decided to go, okay, I'm going to go back into engineering. But I was dreading it. I was like, just with every cell of my being, I was like, I don't want to but I'm like, what else can I do? Because that's, what I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I decided I'm going to take another trip around Europe. I'm just going to spend a few weeks traveling by myself around Europe, my favorite places that I'd spent a significant amount in Italy again. And then literally as I was getting on the plane to go back to the United States, where I already had a couple of very good engineering job probabilities lined up. And just knowing that, oh my God, I'm going to go back into this life that I know that I don't like, and it makes me feel depleted. And I got super sick. I stepped on the plane and my whole system shut down. I had a high fever. I couldn't talk. It was just like instant. I get to my seat and then I start getting, it was just the perfect psychosomatic illness where it's like my body's going, you don't want to be doing this. So I get back to California and I'm in bed sick for 10 days. I was sick. I had never been that sick in my life. Despite all the, problem, liver dysfunction, blah, 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 that I'd had from the traumatic childhood, which is now completely healed, by the way. I'm like, I was in bed, like literally in bed. I had a friend that was coming and bringing me food. I couldn't get out of bed.
This was the flu?
And it was kind of, I guess, kind of like, but I lost my voice. I couldn't talk. It was just, everything was shutting down. And then it was turning into bronchitis, which I'd never had. It was just getting spiraling downwards.
I know exactly.
Yeah, you know how
in terms of Germanic New Medicine, I know exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. It's a territorial fear, sort of like a speechlessness, powerlessness conflict, and you resolved it. The resolution is bronchitis, or like the flu, what they call the flu. So you resolved it. It was a conflict going in your body.
Well,
what came out, you resolved it.
Yeah, so it was turning into bronchitis, and I wasn't doing Western medical doctors or anything like that. So this is just me laying in bed, slowly dying, and I'm not going to go and get some drugs or whatever, which is just, I knew it was my psyche talking to me. So I get out of bed at one point. Finally, I'm like, I have to take back to control, and take back my own power and not be making decisions and doing things that I really don't want to be doing. So what I got out of bed and I knew it's like, I want to move to Italy. I was looking through, I had this Tuscany cookbook that I would look at every once in a while, and I would just be like, oh. So I made the decision. I didn't do anything else. I just decided I'm going to move to Italy. And I get back in bed because I'm still feverish and sick. And, I get back in bed. I wake up the next day and all the symptoms were gone. I was about 95% better. I got on the phone that day, or the computer, however I booked I can't remember how I booked my flight, but I booked a ticket to Italy for 5 weeks later because I thought that would give me enough time, because I had to sell all my stuff. I had a beautiful car. I was renting, fortunately, so I didn't have to deal with getting rid of real estate, but got rid of all of my stuff except my 2 cats, some of my belongings it was crazy trying to sell all my stuff and get rid of everything, or give it away even, and just kind of close out my life in California and get on that plane to move to Italy. But I did.
I know this
Yeah.
is cheesy,
I
but
just,
did you ever watch that movie Under the Tuscan Sun? She kind of did the same thing.
yes, I did. Yes, I did. I actually read that book. I think I read the book first and then I watched. Yes, it was very similar. It's just like this is what I have to do.
Yeah, I was calling to her and it was like speaking to her like, you got to stay here. I guess when
Yes.
you receive that call and it's unmistakable, you have to follow your nose. You just have to follow it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
your body is gonna,
Well,
wreak all
yeah.
sorts of havoc and tell you, no, 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 don't go there, which is exactly what it did.
Right.
Our bodies are so wise.
I know. And that's what I would see so often in my own healing practice afterwards, where it's like people, they have illness and disease, and it's like, but they're like, I have this job because, I took this job because it had good medical benefits. It's like,
Yeah.
I can tell you, if you took a
Yeah.
job that you loved, you don't need all those medical benefits because those medical benefits are a crutch to you. You don't need
Yeah.
them. It's like you can take power over your own health and healing process. You don't need to have people programming is so
I
ingrained.
love
And
that.
people are like, oh, I have to have medical benefits. What happens if blah, blah, blah? It's like, oh my God, focus on what you want to manifest in your life. It's another thing I teach about. It's like create whatever reality you want.
Yes.
So yeah, which you've done amazing.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I know some of your origin story as well. Like, and the things that we come through, it's all part of the learning process. We have to experience the things that we don't want or some semblance of that to know like, okay, I know that doesn't work for me. So I'm going to just like get rid of that whole, department of, for me, like working in a corporate realm or engineering or anything like that, that was very stifling. It was the pivotal moment where I just kind of made the decision I'm never doing something in my life again that I really am not passionate about doing. I have to be. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It's like, and I get these, I call them downloads. I get, intuitive messages where it's like, here, it's like, that's how we're guided, wherever this infinite wisdom is coming from within ourselves or externally or wherever it does come from, learning to follow that voice, because we always know what ultimately is the best for us. But we do get programmed to not listen to that voice and, oh, well, I need to take this job. Like I had heavy programming from my childhood. You get a good job and then you climb the ladder at that job and then it's like you stay at the same company. It's like, all this outdated thinking. And I was never cut out to be an employee. Like it was not part of my programming. I've always been a lone wolf. I do things the opposite the way everybody else does. I don't tell me to do it because that's how it's done. Like that was the thing that would often come up at Lockheed. It's like, just do it this way because that's how it's done. I'm like, well, what about this other way? Have you ever thought about doing? It's like, nope, just stay in the, color between the lines. Don't try to go outside the lines. Like it's just not a good fit for me.
Yeah. But it's so interesting because, you got into engineering. It's so right. It's so left brained actually, but you're also very strong in the right brain. That we go on our path and there's no really mistake in the path. It's sort of like divine right order, divine right timing. So kind of maybe, you said that you picked up a lot of life skills from working in corporate and being an engineer. And I think that there are a lot of stuff that you picked up from there that you were able to glean from in order to create what you create now. Like the skills that you picked up from there, you're able to use in what you're doing now, which is really a good marriage. I think what you're doing now is a good marriage between right and left, east and west, all of that, yin and yang, all of that.
Yeah.
You really embody your work. So it's amazing.
I totally agree. And like every experience that we have is another piece of the puzzle. Like, okay, what really makes my heart sing? And part of it is like, okay, all those I don't regret any of the experiences or things that I've done, or even growing up in the family that I grew up in, or any of that, because all of it was very formative to creating who I am today. So, and a lot of times people get stuck in the, like, they think, oh, for me, I came from this blah, blah, blah family, or I didn't have this, or I didn't have that. And they get stuck in that mindset, that victim mindset. And instead of using that to empower themselves, they use it to weaken themselves and I work with people a lot with that, shifting that mindset. It's like, you have so much power and you just need to take control of your life. It's not about, you get mired in this, oh, well, I had this problem, I had this trauma or whatever, or this thing happened to me. And it's like, think of it in terms of like all of these are opportunities, they're gifts for you to learn from, learn and
Yes.
grow, instead of being like, oh, this thing happened to me, or I got cancer, or whatever affliction or illness or disease that the Western medical model wants to make you believe that you are a victim of this thing, or it's just this thing descending upon you, and now we're going to medicate you and give you surgeries, and you just have to manage it for your the rest
Yeah.
of your life. You take these pills, and it's a very weakening system. Instead of letting people understand, which is what I teach, you have complete control over your health and healing
Very
process.
much. And then also to elucidate or to like enlighten that a bit, because I'm a trauma therapist, Leanne. Ever since I met you in 2016, since then I focused on trauma release. And of course with the filter of Germanic New Medicine, where we know exactly what mental illness is or how it happens in the brain. And why it happens is because of some sort of distressful life experience. So we talk about childhood trauma, which everybody has had, because as children, our brains are developing and everything is in theta, everything is big, and one small slap is like a big thing. But sometimes, and we know that trauma is the only way that the brain upgrades itself in something called constellation. So somehow, if everything were hunky dory, just straight lined and everything, well, you'd be a normal, you'd have a brain that is normal, that would just go through life, and maybe you'd have a few gifts here and there. But the ones that are truly gifted, because it needs to upgrade in order to rise above the traumatic experiences, are the ones that really experience family trauma or childhood trauma in school or things of that nature. And you would say that in a way I am who I am because of what has happened to me, and I can't do anything about that. But I could look at it as it was planned that way in order for me to collect my gifts or to develop my gifts so that I could be who I am today, and I could accomplish the mission that I need to in this life. And so it had its place.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I actually take it a step further, because I go even beyond that and say that, if you understand that when you come into this lifetime, you actually get to choose what kind of lessons you want to learn and what kind of experiences you want to have. So all of those traumas, that you interpret as trauma, because sometimes it could be as simple as like, oh, my mother was 5 minutes late picking me up from the school bus stop or something, which will be interpreted as, oh my God, did she like leave me? Yeah, we all have some degree of trauma, whether it's what somebody else might perceive as trauma. It doesn't matter. It's like the way that you interpret it. But again, it's like, okay, well, I want to have these experiences in this lifetime. I talk about the fact that our life is like a movie, and we're the writer, the director, main actor, the supporting actors, all of this, and we can change the script anytime we want. But coming in and saying, okay, well, this is my acting role. This is what I'm going to do in this lifetime. This is who I'm going to be, or this is ultimately the things I want to experience and learn, whatever that may be. And then when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, I'm the one who chose to be born into that family or have these experiences. And then when you have that realization, everything changes. The way you look at everything, interactions that you have with different people, whether they're your family, your parents, or abusers or whatever, all of that is, you see it from a completely different perspective. And it's a perspective of self-empowerment, not victimhood. Like, oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm sure you see a lot of people, sometimes they're choosing to stay in that victim persona because it fulfills them in some way. They get attention, or they get, oh, poor you, that might be the most attention they get. If I'm the victim, I get a lot of people coming in and saying, poor you. Or if I say, oh, I have cancer, I have this illness or disease or whatever, oh, poor you. And it's like, that can be fulfilling and rewarding for people. But until they realize that that's actually weakening you further, every one of those poor yous. And
that's what we call a secondary gain or psychological reversal. It's like the upside of the downside. And it really keeps people sick.
Exactly.
And victim mentality is like, I'm never wrong if I'm a victim. So that's their comfort zone.
Well, and as you also know, the psychology of like being able to say, okay, I was wrong and made a mistake. Because sometimes people dig in their heels. It's like, well, there's no way, and we saw lots of examples of that over the past 3 3.5 years, or however long it's been. Yeah, 3.5 years, as you know what I'm talking about. But
Yes,
lots of
yes,
people
absolutely.
refuse to like say, oh, okay, maybe I interpreted the situation correctly. And all those people that were trying to tell me that I was wrong were right all along. So it's sometimes people get so attached to, I can't let go of being right about this, or, or whether it's their illness also. Sometimes they're like, they study so much. They've read all these internet articles about their diagnosis, and they are experts I know the chemistry, and I know all the stuff that's happening in my body. And they want to, tell you about all of it in very great detail. And like, I understand the science, so it makes me feel really smart because I can understand the articles. And then I can tell you all about my label and why I have this problem. And it's very rare. The more rare it is, the more attached they become to it. It's like this very rare disease, and very few people have it. I'm very, very special, and I can't possibly heal because I have such a rare condition. I know that you've worked with thousands of people that have completely healed from literally anything and everything under the sun, but I can't heal because I have this very rare condition. I just don't think that I can heal. It's like,
Yeah, the limiting
limited.
belief. I mean,
But it's that reversal that you're talking about, because it's like, well, they get to say, get rid of the labels. I don't care about your diagnosis. Forget about that. Tell me what you as a human being are experiencing, and I'll tell you what energy systems are impacted and where the origin of the blockages that's creating all these symptoms, whether or not they fit under your umbrella term Western medical establishment gives you, so you can
yeah,
become nice and attached to that label, understanding every little
yeah.
diagnosis. But don't want to know your label. I don't care about your label. I just want to know about what your experience is. And
The mind is so powerful because it can keep you sick or it can help you, heal and become whole in like seconds. There's this thing called autosuggestion from Emile Coué in the 20s or the
Mhm.
or 1910s, I forget. But he would just tell his patients to say, every day in every way, I am getting better and better. Like 20
Oh, I
times,
know the
several
phrase.
times a
Yeah.
day.
Uh-huh.
And they get better
Mm-hmm.
because they believe it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's something that Moshe
Yeah.
Feldenkrais, one of my mentors, said when he
Mm-hmm.
had this terrible injury and was bedridden for days and didn't think that he could walk again from soccer. His knee was broken the other way, like against
Mm-hmm.
the joint.
Oh, yeah.
And oh my God, it was
Mm-hmm.
so painful. And he was bedridden and he said that every day. And he was able to develop actually his method by being bedridden, saying that and realizing the power of the mind. And then he developed the
Mm-hmm.
Feldenkrais method. But just saying that, plus, plus all of the therapies that you do, the energetic therapies that you do, I mean, it's so powerful.
Yeah, it is, because it's also a thing about repetition, repeating something, because you basically are reprogramming your limiting belief system by replacing that limiting belief system
Yes.
with a positive affirmation. It has to be, present tense, first person, as though it already exists. So, and it's very easy to do. You can only have, one conscious thought in your mind. So it's like, have the positive thought that desire what you want to become, and all that, like whether it's, oh, I really want this job, or like, oh my God, I'm afraid of losing my job. You focus on what it is that you want. And whether it's like, whatever it is, whatever, relationship, or, a business, what, like anything, healing, health, optimal health, it's like creating that belief system and basically reprogramming your mind, and then you manifest it. So because you start putting that thought is energy, you start broadcasting that energy, you start attracting the things that are going to help you facilitate the reality that you want to manifest. And it can be like instantaneous. I mean, like I've had so many cases of, I want to make a dramatic shift, and it's just a matter of even just keeping that thought, occasionally thinking about it, and then somebody shows up, or somebody calls you, or somebody sends you an email, or somebody, connects you, or you feel like, oh, I have to go to this store for whatever reason, I don't even know why. And then you meet somebody. The way that we're provided with these connections,
Yeah.
pretty fascinating. But it's
Super.
all, based in energy, constantly
Yes.
broadcasting. We're putting out, hey, this is who I am, and call like energy attracts like energy. So if you're like, I'm victim, like, poor me, you're going to attract a lot of that. You're going to attract more
Yes.
people that's like, that's it. They're going to keep you in that victim state. And you shift that message to, I'm, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. Then you start manifesting people that are like in that same frequency, in that same vibration, that are have that same positive outlook, in that same I make my life happen. My life doesn't happen
Yeah.
to me. I create my life.
I love it, and
It's
that, and how powerful. Recently I heard this, where how powerful the mind is. You have to be careful about the words, because thoughts are things, and words materialize them. And when you keep
yeah.
praying that, oh God, please protect me, then you're praying
Mhm.
for things that He will need to that God will need to protect you from. In other words, you're attracting
Exactly. Yeah.
events in your life where
Yeah.
you need to be protected from by God.
Mhm.
And so if
Yep.
instead you say, thank you for making me feel safe, or I feel safe, I'm safe where I am, things like that, then that's better than
Yeah.
please protect me. So it's so interesting that
Yes,
it's
exactly.
very nuanced.
It is. Well, and if you always think in the terms of like positive, like what do I want to create? Not what do I want to not have happen? What do I want to have happen? So even somebody, oh, I want to quit smoking. Well, you don't say I want to quit smoking. You say I have perfectly healthy body and healthy lungs, and I make choices that are in alignment with a healthy body, and whatever you can make it as concise as you want. But it's like not I want to quit smoking, or not even I'm a non-smoker, because that's a negative word. Like
Yes.
I'm not a non-smoker. I am somebody who makes conscious choices that are healthy in alignment with, having healthy lungs or whatever, healthy body, healthy mind. Um, so it's in the, again, first person present tense, as though it already exists.
I love it. I love it. And I
So
and I know you embody this, because looking at your life and everything that you've accomplished, and you've excelled at everything that you did, or are still doing. I think you really are the
mhm.
greatest spokesperson for this particular concept. So, Leanne, why don't we talk about your education in the five elements theory and all of that Eastern? What got you into that, and how did you integrate it with your engineering expertise?
Okay, so the part about coming back to the States to go back for Eastern medicine, I went to a TCM, Chinese medicine school, traditional Chinese medicine, which is essentially post-communist Chinese medicine. It's not the original Chinese medicine. It's the Chinese medicine that was allowed to be practiced after the Communist Party came in, tried to abolish all of Eastern, original Chinese medicine, which is all about finding your path and purpose in life. That's what's rooted in five elements. It's kind of like there's a lot of connection with, Jungian in the soundbite. We are here, each of us is here for a reason. And your purpose is to figure out why are you here? And it's not to go, punch a clock 9 to 5 and just be a cog in the middle, but rather, what is your ultimate purpose and why are you here? What is your divine purpose? What is your entelechy, the seed within? That's a Jungian term, also, the seed within. So you find the seed, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? What are my gifts, and what am I here to bring forth to the world? Because every individual has gifts that they need to, it's like a seed. You need to water the seed, you need to, let it germinate and then sprout and then turn into a beautiful flowering plant. If you don't nourish that seed within, then it shrivels up and you end up doing these things that you don't want to be doing, like corporate job that you hate because you get good medical benefits. But the purpose, basically, like I said, in a nutshell, that's kind of like we are healthy and happy and flourishing and prosperous as individuals when we figure out what our true path and purpose is, and then we follow that true path and purpose. And so many people don't. When we don't follow our true path and purpose, that's when illness and disease, dis-ease, D-I-S-E-A-S-E, like unnoticed disease, sets in. And we get a disruption in our energy system. And then that energy system problems, the deficiencies, the weak energy in the energy system, the blockages of energy in the energy system manifest eventually in the physical body. All of that said. So when I was studying TCM, and I was literally in clinic training, I would get some of the Chinese professors that are trained in traditional Chinese medicine side by side with Western medicine. So this is what they do in China. It's a very symptom-based approach. It's exactly like Western medicine, except that you're getting a patient in, because what I was seeing in my first year, I'm like, these patients have been coming to the clinic here for 2 years for the same thing. And they just keep coming back. It's like you're not actually helping facilitate healing. You're just you're just a replacement for Western medicine. So they would come in, they're like, you get them to come in, tell them what your chief complaint is. Well, I'm getting headaches. Okay, well, we're going to treat the chief complaint. That's TCM. Treat the chief complaint and then send them on their way. And you're going to do that through acupuncture, but more and more of an emphasis being placed on herbology. Give them an herbal prescription, have them take that, and then have them come back in a week, tweak the herbal prescription based on what has changed. And then I'd just be like, yeah, but you're just sending them in circles. What about and I would talk to a patient and I'd be like, when did this problem start? Like within 5 minutes, I get to the root of it. It's like, oh, when does it flare up? Oh, every time I have an argument with my father or my sister or, something. And it's like, well, that's what the connection is. And they would always give you clues too, when you're asking them questions, but they were being trained to not even, and they would literally tell me, no, don't ask them about their emotional stuff. It's just like, what's the chief complaint and treat that. That's what your job is. And that's Western medicine. You're just replacing it with Chinese herbs. Yes. So anyway, I left that school, but I had the good fortune that particular school had Zen Shiatsu. There's a woman who was teaching in Germany and in that school. And it was the Zen Shiatsu, the full certified program takes the same amount of time as to become an acupuncturist, with the clinic training and everything. So, and there were a lot of classes that overlapped. There was a lot, the foundational stuff for acupuncture was the same for the Zen Shiatsu. Zen Shiatsu being not when you go to a massage therapist and they say that they do Shiatsu. That's a couple of weekends that they study. It's not a true healing approach. It's kind of they're basically learning enough to kind of like a Western medical doctor that learns some acupuncture points and they're like, oh, I can do acupuncture. They can stick in some needles into some key point. That's not doing the full acupuncture assessment and treatment. But again, TCM was teaching the polar opposite of what I wanted to learn. So I ended up leaving that school. After I finished my Zen Shiatsu training, then I went to continue and go to a school in British Columbia that had it was a 5 elements focus. And I did a lot of studying with some of the professors there within the structure and then outside additional training. Because for me, it was all about understand the interconnections in the energy system and the color correspondences between the different energy systems, the different colors that are connected to those energy systems, and the psycho-emotional connection with the energy system. So that's how I can very easily, within literally about 5 minutes, 10 minutes of having a conversation with somebody that's been dealing with one illness and one physical challenge after another, often for decades, and they go from one specialist, Western medical specialist, to another. Sometimes they're doing acupuncture, sometimes they're doing chiropractic, sometimes they're doing all of these things and nothing's ever resolving. And I get on the phone with them because I do pro bono healing consultation, call times, invitation only. It's more of an intuitive thing. It's like, here, I'm going to get on the phone with you. And then, okay, we're going to go back. Go back to when did all these problems start? What was the very first thing starting? Oh, when I was a child, I used to have really bad constipation. Or I used to have terrible headaches or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, now we're going to talk about what was your family environment? What was it, and then can pinpoint exactly where the first thing started. And then it's like all of these other things that have manifested throughout the years are just a snowballing, a piling on effect. One blockage then snowballs into more and more problems. And then how the energy system, one component of the energy system then kind of overflows onto the next one. And then you start having these physical symptoms. It's a snowballing effect. Western medicine sees them as 10 different problems. And I immediately see all of them are interconnected and they all stem from this origin. Your body has been trying to talk to you for many years to address the origin and to allow that trauma come to the surface so you can let go of it. Because people don't realize that they keep things suppressed and squashed down because it's painful to think about that, or they rebrand them. It's like, oh yeah, I was from a very happy family and blah blah blah, but my father was screaming and shouting all the time and hitting my mother. It's like they don't even realize they've rebranded their childhood so it fits the story that they want to tell. And it's like, but then you ask them about detail stuff and it's like
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah, but I'm sure you know, because you're dealing with people with trauma all the time. So,
Yeah, but
but
I
getting,
love it's so intuitive for
go ahead.
you, right? I mean, you picked this up. But my gosh, Leanne, you would love learning, you would love GNM because it's exactly what you're doing. But there's we
Mhm.
know the exact causes of all symptoms, like all cancers,
Okay.
Alzheimer's, even the common rash, a common
Mhm.
cold, COVID, the exact psychobiological, in air quotes, emotions behind them. And
Yeah.
so it just kind of, for me, it was like the missing link. It was like, whoa, it made it clear you could just laser light focus, pun intended, laser light
Mhm.
focus
Yeah.
into the actual trauma origin. Oh my gosh. So I'm
Mhm.
going to give you all the resources, and I think this will
Okay,
really
cool.
enhance your, but yeah, but amazing that you already got it, that you got it even before knowing
Well,
about
yeah, and
GNM and
because
stuff.
when you connect it and you look at actual symptoms, whatever the symptoms are, not the label, but the symptoms of what that person is experiencing. Because as you know, a label can be like, there might be 50 symptoms in this label, but you only have 20 of them, but it's enough of those symptoms to put this label on you. And I'm like, I don't want to know the label because no way you have all 50 of these symptoms. I just want to know by talking about what symptoms they have, then I can pinpoint the energy system that is affected or has been affected that creates these blockages in the different parts of the body. Also, wherever the cancer is, that like it's not cancer, it's where is the cancer? Do you know what I mean? It's like, because you can have, lung cancer, you can have breast cancer, you can have ovarian cancer, you can have, whatever, liver cancer. It's all relevant, it's
Yes,
not the cancer itself. There's not like, okay, well, this cancer
right,
is, or cancer in general is connected with blah, blah, blah. But when
right.
you do have something that affects the whole system, that's obviously you've gotten to a pretty high level of disruption is threatening your life because it's like cancer, it's not cancer coming in and like, because it's illogical even to think that you're a victim of cancer. Cancer is not
Mm.
going to try to kill the host that it's living in.
Right.
So, yeah, it boils down to, stuck energy, depleted life force energy, and high levels of toxin. And then
Yes.
you address the psycho-emotional root of where the deficiency in energy and the blocked energy is coming from.
Oh my
So,
gosh, you so get it. I love it. And this is all from you. I mean, it's intuitive, it's everything that you embody and teach and all. It's amazing.
mhm.
Yeah, and no wonder your devices. I mean, I have them. I mean, I do have a mat from Dave. The
Uh-huh.
main photobiomodulation healing device that I have is from Leanne Venier, Rejuvenator, nothing else. And
Yeah.
I've had tons of success stories with them, as you have in your community. In our community, the Rejuvenator,
Yeah.
there's so many testimonials there with animals, as I've had also animals come to my, and also my
Mhm.
cats use the Rejuvenator. Talk to us
Right.
about your discovery of color and flow state and all of that, how it all got into becoming a light engineer therapist healing device.
I know, and that goes back to I'm doing the painting thing because that is where it all started going out into the world. Because up until that point, it was like me studying, learning, connecting dots, and all of that stuff. The culmination came about with me in my own wanting to get into flow and being able to get into that, that zone, which is very healing in itself. In the beginning painting class, but then catapulting myself into flow by using the colors that I was craving. I discovered early on, I started painting at home because I couldn't get into the zone in class because the teacher would always come around talking, and it's like you can't, when you're trying to learn how to get into flow, it's like somebody like using language and talking to you pulls you out of flow. So I started painting at home and just kind of got this download. It's like, here, like I'm going to start mixing up some paint. And I was working with indigo and violet that day. And I start mixing it on my palette, and I'm like, it was like eye candy. I couldn't stop staring at it. It was just so drawing me in, which is what I would hear over and over again from people that would feel that same thing looking at my completed paintings. But I'm just feeling like, oh my God, this is just like feeding me. Staring at these colors is feeding me. And I wasn't getting into analysis about why that is. I was just going with the flow, no pun intended. So okay, and I'm like, okay, let's see what happens if I start painting with this. So I start painting these colors across my canvas, going back and forth, like almost hypnotically back and forth, just blending and smooth and putting and just staring and absorbing these colors through my eyes and my energy field. And I got into flow state. That very first painting, I'm like, okay, I'm blending these colors, I'm putting them on the canvas. And then I start getting downloads like, here, okay, now take a big blob of white pure oil paint and spread it across the painting with the palette. And I did that. And then I'm like, okay, now pick up the bottle of solvent and start spraying it, put it on the ground and move it around. So I'm like, nobody had ever done these techniques that they're coming through me. And I'm like, oh, this is looking really cool, but I'm not making decisions to do. I'm just listening and I'm doing, my hands are basically doing what I'm kind of guided to do. That created these amazing techniques and these amazing effects within the paint, like not controlled, but like I'm kind of using gravity for moving paint around and stuff, but very uncontrolled and just kind of knowing, okay, stop there. Now lay it flat, let it dry, and most of my paintings have many, many layers of paint, but that was the very first one. And then I'm like, okay, let's do this again. I did it again the next day. I'm using those same colors because I'm still creating those color energies. Then I did a diptych. I went to a much bigger, because I had only worked on up to 18 by 24 inch canvases at that point. Because if you paint people that go, it's like the bigger the canvas, the more daunting it is, because it's like, okay, you've got this bigger canvas and it's more expensive than the 18 by 24. And I paid a lot of money for these, so I moved to 30 by 30. I just jumped to that. And I started painting with those same colors. And then I'm like okay, now take the thing, do the white paint and then spray. And anyway, the reason I'm telling this part in detail, that turned out to be a diptych to 30 by 30. I named the first one Opening and the second one Synchronicity, A and B.
Wow.
Those were some of the first paintings that I made, like while I'm in this beginner painting class, that I'm painting at home where I can actually get in the flow. There were so many things, the universe conspired in so many ways to make this happen, where we did a one-night exhibition with this beginner painting class. It was the perfect storm, the right people being in the class, and very unheard of for a beginner painting class to do a one-night exhibition. And then the local Austin Museum gave us the whole front room to do that. It was just bizarre. But so all the faculty from the community college where I was taking this painting class, all the art faculty, including the head of the art department, they came. And all these people, these teachers, painting teachers, the head of the art department, I brought the paintings that I created at home in flow state, and I had those on exhibit. And people were like, who is this artist? And like, people are tracking me down. I get invited to be in the citywide, exhibition for the community college with like these painting. It was just bizarre. So after that thing, after getting so much feedback, because I'm just like, well, I think they're not just cool. They're like, they were hitting people like at this strong emotional level. Long story short, after that, I got the very clear download. Now you need to become a professional artist. And I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, that won't be interesting enough to me. It's like, I just am like, that won't be interesting or challenging enough to me to be a professional artist. Like, I'm interested in so many things, but that was and I'm like, oh, okay. There's so many things that I get these downloads and it's like, here, now you're going to do this. And I'm like, oh, I don't, like here, go, give a talk at this medical university. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to learn PowerPoint. Like,
I love it. I have a couple of questions. Yeah, I
go
get
ahead.
downloads too, but those two questions is, do you think that the people are or gravitate towards your paintings because you painted them in the flow state? So we know the flow state is, from the father Flow Csikszentmihalyi, and it's been talked about in many books like Stealing Fire and all of that, like the alpha theta state, that you kind of imbue the painting with your flow, and that the people kind of pick up that state when they look at the colors. Is it that, or is it the actual colors that you said they're craving, chromotherapy? It's something that they want, it speaks to them, or it fills sort of that gap or what they're looking for, if that's
it's
one
both.
of them?
It is absolutely both. And it took me literally 3 years to reverse engineer, like to figure out because I literally, kid you not, when people would be gushing over my paintings and some people would be crying and like having these like emotional, like, oh my God, like literally. And I just can't say,
Wow.
well, they're just, they're just being nice. They're like trying to flatter me or whatever. Like it just didn't make logical sense to me that I'm a beginner painter. How, like, I don't know how to do that stuff, Anyway, because I was painting in flow, so I realized afterwards, 3 years down the road, it's because I'm creating them in flow. So I'm channeling this energy that's going into the paintings, that people are picking up on that energy. It's also the color, but the way that I work color, and again, a lot of that was like, here, now do this and use these colors. I would paint, all of my paintings have lots and lots of layers, but a lot of them are like different layers of color underneath. So, but what you see on the top is kind of the sum total. And when you shine a light, they're all translucent layers. So it goes through all these color energies. And then what you see on the top, like a fiery red painting, might have all these other colors underneath it, but what you're seeing on the top is the fiery red. So they're responding to the fiery red, they're responding to all the colors underneath, they're responding to the fact that it's painted in flow, and I'm channeling this information. And by the way, a lot of people attribute the flow concept to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, or however you say his name, who, so he coined the phrase. A lot of people don't know his origin story. He learned about flow from going to a lecture by Carl Jung, Austria or Germany, where are they? Austria. So he went to a lecture when he was in college. Carl Jung was giving a lecture and he was talking about this zone. He didn't call it flow. He called it, I forget what his name was, but he was talking about this heightened awareness state. And that's where Mihai got the idea. And then he used a very left-brained approach to analyze, like, how do people get there? What are the common factors? What is it when people are reporting that? What is the sensation like? So he, in a more didactic way, analyzed, took, thousands of data points and interviewing people and that sort of thing to compile his research. But he got the original idea for the whole concept from Carl Jung. That's where the inspiration for because he's like, this is fascinating, and so many people find getting into flow very elusive. All that to say that it all goes back to Carl Jung. And again, it's that tapping into this universal energy, collective consciousness, and getting this information that we then down. Like, you hear about, writers all the time. They get the download and they know the whole story. Or as they're writing, they're just like, I'm just trying to keep the words as they're coming into my head. And it's not them creating the story, it's the story coming through them. Same thing with painting, same thing with people who create music. So many people, they're like, I didn't write this song, it just kind of came to me and I put it down on paper, but so that's kind of the constant. People that are actually getting into flow state, you feel like you're channeling something. So that, for me, for the longest time, it's like, and I still to this day, I don't feel like I personally created my paintings. I mean, I physically created them. I was present. My body, my hands did the work to create them, but I didn't have the knowledge or the experience or whatever. I created a ton of techniques that all came through downloads that then I would share freely with other, because artists would be like, how did you do this? And I would tell them, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're giving away your secrets. It's like, I can tell you for, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if I tried to repaint that painting that I did, I couldn't do it. There's no way I could recreate my own painting. You're not going to be able to recreate my painting. I can't even recreate my own. So everything would come through in these flow states. So I'm like, you take the technique and do with it whatever you will. But it's like,
you're the real deal, Leanne. You're just authenticity. Period. Integrity. And this is the reason that I insist on only using the Rejuvenator, because you're the real deal. Like everyone else was just copycatting you. Like you were the first expert and only expert that I've known who's so authentic in her knowledge and wisdom, embodied wisdom that, spills over into your work and into your devices. And that's why there's so thousands of success stories. And all of a sudden, people from left, right, and center started copying even the exact looking panel as yours, but just not the same. It looks the same, but it's just not the same. And I would never, ever, ever subject people to, that, like my clients. I would like to give them always the authentic, the real thing, the real deal with, backed by tons of testimonials. So talk about that, Leanne.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you feel? Did you feel a lot of pressure coming through after when the biohacking concept kind of exploded with photobiomodulation?
Well, no, because I'm the one that introduced it in the first place through my teachings and my video. So I'm the one that connected the dots. I brought like basically light therapy to the masses because I didn't invent light therapy. And rejuvenator therapy is much more than light therapy. So this is where like people often think that it's light therapy. No, it's kind of like a chocolate chip cookie has flour, butter, sugar, chocolate chips and baking soda. It's a whole cookie, but like the light therapy portion of the rejuvenator is kind of like, the baking soda. It's not the whole chocolate chip cookie. It's an integral part of the rejuvenator, but it's like all the other stuff, flour, butter, sugar, chocolate chips is what makes up the rest of it. So sometimes people, because they see the light, they're like, oh, it's a light therapy device. Well, it's much more than that. It's kind of like I use the other analogy. A Ferrari has a steering wheel. You get in, you can drive your Ferrari from point A to point Z and get, where you want to go. If you take out that steering wheel, you can't go anywhere. So it's like the steering wheel is the light therapy. It has a job. That's why so many, and a lot of so-called light therapy devices are really not effective at all.
Yes,
and there's only so much that you can do with light therapy alone. Same thing with laying in the sun. It's like sunlight has benefits for sure, but if you're laying in the sun in the middle of New York City, you're still going to have a net negative effect because it's like, yeah, you're getting some benefit from the sun, but you've got the chaotic energy, you've got the toxic energy, the electricity, and fumes and pollution and chaotic energy coming off all the people, Wi-Fi, and you name it, and all that stuff. So it's like you're trying to get some benefit from sunshine, but you've got all these straws that are depleting your energy system by sucking out your life force energy. So I talk about the fact you need sunlight, but you also need the healing energies in nature, the life force energy. Chi, prana, there's a number of different names for it. It's the same thing. The thing that distinguishes you, Ellie, talking to me here today as a live, vibrant, individual, as opposed to Ellie with no life force energy laying on the floor dead. That life force energy, your physical body would still be identical if it's laying on the floor dead. If you drop dead now, like your life force energy is gone, your physical body doesn't change. Well, it would start deteriorating, but let's not get macabre. But anyway, like one moment to the next, the thing that keeps you alive and the thing that keeps you vibrant is that life force energy. So it's basically the fuel, the gas in your gas tank. So if you think of yourself as a car, the Ferrari model again, it's like, okay, well, you can make everything beautiful. Like, let's say you have an old, I don't know, Chevy Impala or something, and it's like,
we had one.
Did you really? Okay.
Old car in the 70s. I forget. Yeah. My family had.
So it doesn't matter. You can redo the exterior, get rid of all the dents, repaint the body, put in new leather seats, make everything all shiny and new. It doesn't matter if you do all of that surface cosmetic stuff. You have to, if you don't put gas in the gas tank, you're not going anywhere. So a lot of times people focus on all the cosmetic stuff or all the physical stuff or all the chemistry related stuff. And I'm trying to fix my physical body. It's like you need to be fixing your energy body because you don't have any gas in your gas tank and you are running on fumes. So you're trying to make up for that by chasing chemistry instead of realizing you need to be focusing on quantum healing benefits that your body needs. Energy medicine, the life force energy, the chi, prana, whatever. But you have to put the energy into the system when you're you need to fill up your gas tank. So that's where people get depleted. Like if you've ever been, you're having a perfectly good day, and then something happens, like maybe you're driving and somebody cuts you off and you're like, you get that, fight or flight, and it's like that shock, and then it's depleting. It instantly depletes your life force energy gas tank. Or if you get in an argument with somebody, or God forbid, somebody lives with somebody and they're constantly arguing with them, it's very draining and depleting. It's basically like a straw stuck in your gas tank, siphoning off that life force energy. Every stressful event that you have is depleting you, depleting that life force energy.
Yeah, that's another one, right? There's like an analogy that I have. I don't know if you know, you probably know him, but Jerry Tennant is one of the guys that I really follow. He's the author of the Healing is Voltage series, and he just calls it you want to be around electron donors, and you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be around electron stealers. And there's so
Right.
many.
And another word that people may have heard before is energy vampires. They will suck your life force energy. You see it a lot in social media platforms where people are in these communities and they write something caustic or like really antagonistic, and they try to get people riled up. And then everybody jumps in and they were perfectly happy until they read that post and they're like, oh my God, that is such injustice. Or you see it often on the Nextdoor app here but there's this Nextdoor app where it's all neighbors that are connected, but somebody will like say, I can't believe blah, 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 the whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they try to get people riled up. And then you see people jump on this bandwagon, and the people that write the post are going, yum, 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 yum. And they're like eating all this negative energy from everybody that, oh, I'm getting all these people riled up. And they're just getting angry, like I'm angry, and I'm angry at the world. I want everybody else to be angry with me, and it can come online, but it can be like another, everyday life. When we didn't have online, that was how people.
Yeah, and the thing is, they give their permission to be taken from, it's like nobody can upset you without your permission. And if you allow them,
Exactly.
definitely they'll steal your electrons, your energy from you because you allowed it.
I know. No, and it's the same thing, like when people would say, oh, that person made me so angry. It's like, that person can't make you angry. Only you can make yourself angry. If you choose to make yourself angry. It's like, whatever they say, it's like you can be like a duck and let it roll off your back. But it's like if you take it on, and and then we get into the whole conversation, the concept of the shadow, which is another Jungian psychology term, parts of our psyche that we don't want to see. Like, let's say I'm always like late, and I tell people ahead of time, I'm Italian, I'm an artist, I don't know, whatever excuse you want, but I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I might be 5 to 10 minutes late, so you can show up 5 to 10 minutes late, and I will always let you know. But anyway, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm always punctual, or if somebody shows up, they're waiting for somebody, and that person is 5 minutes late, and they might get like, oh, I'm so angry. It's like, how could they just like they're late and they didn't even, it's like the story that they tell around that, whatever it is, it's like, oh, they don't respect me or blah, blah, blah. They don't realize, but you're always late, like you're always late too. And well, yeah, but that's different because I always have a good reason, blah, blah, blah. And so when you find yourself getting triggered by little things or big things, it's like, I always tell people, like, shine the spotlight back on yourself. And if you get triggered by something, that's usually your psyche trying to hide the part of you, like you do that, you are that person, and it's easier to cast that, I don't like this about myself, so I'm not going to see it, but I'll see it in you, Ellie. If you're like 5 minutes late, then it's like, you're like, she's 5 minutes late, and whatever, however people.
When you point a finger at someone, how many fingers are pointing back at you? There's 3.
Yeah, exactly.
It mirrors something in you, It's so interesting. I love it. Everything is feedback. Everything is like a teaching opportunity to become better if you're aware.
It's like, exactly. If you're aware, if you're present, and if you find yourself getting triggered about something, then stop and don't immediately react. Look at like, okay, why am I reacting to this? Because obviously it's hitting a nerve that I don't want, like if they try to say something or insult you, and it's like, well, I know it's not true, so I don't care what you think.
Right.
Like, that doesn't bother me. But if there's something they say, and I know that about myself, but I don't want to see that, then I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna like, you don't even like a knee-jerk reaction where it's like, no, I reject that, because if you don't want to see it. So if you find yourself getting like reactive or getting, that knee-jerk, no, that's not, no, I didn't do that, or no, whatever, then that's a very good indicator that there might be something in your psyche that you
absolutely
don't
that
see.
you need to fix.
And even about fixing, it's about like, be aware of it, and then like maybe it's something you want to improve on, or it's like if you don't mind that, then just embrace it and acknowledge, yeah, that's who I am. like
Yeah.
I'm 5 minutes, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's an
So,
opportunity to become better always. We're always about,
mhm,
trying to be better than yesterday. So, Leanne, I wanted to ask you about always what I tell my clients is like what so they ask me why did you there's so many commercial and actually more affordable light technology out there, photobiomodulation. So they always ask me why did you choose this? I said number one, the maker inventor is an expert. She knows her stuff and she knows about the energy body and she's a color expert. And I also tell them that it's because there are quantum codes imbued into the light devices. Is that right? And
yeah.
could you elucidate a little bit what the quantum codes mean and how they work in the body?
Well, it's essentially that energy medicine component. So it's the stuff that fills up your life force energy gas tank and opens up the blocked energy channels. When we go out into nature, so I always try to bring things down to a level where people can understand from an experiential side, which is how I validated the science of light therapy in the first place, because I didn't just introduce scientific research studies, because those had been going on since the turn of last century. So nobody was paying attention to it because it didn't make logical sense. How can color and light have any kind of healing effect? So I connected the dots between all these disparate fields of study, connected it with color, the fact that color and light are synonymous, because, when you think of light therapy, I mean, when you think of light, you think of white light most of the time. People think of, okay, white light because that's what they have in their light bulbs, but they don't realize that white light has all these colors within it. So I broke down the physics, the electromagnetic spectrum, explained all the basic science in very, very easy to understand terms. And then I connected it to real world experience. So this is what, how does it feel when you look at this color? These colors have this impact and effect on you. And then like you get to experience it in real life. So with the energy medicine component, I talk about, when you go out into nature, the feeling that you get, that's very different from the feeling that when you're in a city, like if you go out into, the mountains, or you're by an ocean, but not like Los Angeles, somewhere you're like in the Caribbean on a remote island, or somewhere in the mountains, or you're somewhere where you're away from a city and you're immersed in nature. Do you know the feeling, how that feels?
Yes.
So that feeling that you get, that is that life force energy, because there's an abundance of it in nature. And again, it's, whatever word you want to call it, chi, prana. You can literally look in the sky and see prana, the little squiggly, bits of
yes, I've
flickering
seen that.
light, understanding it from an experiential, because a lot of time, in the biohacking community, everybody wants to, okay, well, let me break this down and understand the chemistry and all this stuff. And they try to put it into a language where they can understand it from a
Wavelength and all
chemical.
of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm the one that introduced all of that to explain how these things work and connect them with real world experience. But then because it's the left brain part, people kind of glommed onto that. And it's like, okay, well, I can talk about this and I can talk about wavelengths and I can try to understand how it affects the mitochondria and blah, blah, blah. But they're still focusing on the chemistry aspects and how it affects the physical tissues, instead of understanding that you go beyond the light and you go into the subtle energy, that the energy medicine component, that again, this is the wavelength part, that's the sunlight. Okay. The light that you, whether it's visible or invisible, radiation rays that are coming from sunlight, those have these wavelengths that correspond to them. The life force energy that you feel, that's not a wavelength. That you can go, like, let's say you're in the middle of a city and it's 12 o'clock on a Sunday and you're in the middle of the city. You take a spectrometer, and a spectrometer is a device, a physical device that can measure the wavelengths from the sun. You point it at the light and it will tell you, oh, there's this much red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet in the sun right now. So you can actually see it on a graph. There's this much blue, there's this much, red. The machine can tell you that. It can tell you the wavelengths that are coming from that light source. You can do the same thing and point it at a light bulb. So we have technology that you can point at a light source and it will tell you the wavelengths that are coming from it. You can take that device now, like let's say you're in the middle of the city and you do that, you take a reading. And now like you just zip over to now you go up in the mountains, same day, same time. You take the machine and you point it at the sun. what do you think it's going to tell you?
The same wavelength, but actually better?
Yes, the wavelengths are
Oh,
not
the
going to
wavelength would
change.
be the same, right?
The wavelengths aren't going to change from one, whether you're doing it in the middle of a city that feels yucky energetically, or you go into the mountains and by this,
Yes, I see
beautiful
what you mean.
giant
Yes.
lake or whatever. It's going to be the exact same data from the sun. I mean, same time of day, you're going to get the same data, same time of year, it's going to be the same. Of course, if it's cloudy, that would change it. But I'm just saying, like apples to
Right.
apples, if there's no difference between the data you're going to get from the sunlight in the middle of New York City versus the same day, same time of year, same cloudy conditions,
Yeah.
whatever, in the beautiful mountains where it feels amazing to be there. The
Yeah.
data, the wavelengths don't change. So I'm just trying to separate. The light therapy component is different from the energy medicine. The energy that you feel that is abundant in nature, that chi prana,
Yeah.
again, trying to give people the real world experience. So a light therapy device that just has light coming from it, it's got certain wavelengths, and that's what people glom onto, and they get all like, oh, like this wavelength does this, and it's like, and I try to explain to people, it's like the research, the way that research is done and the way that research gets funded, you get money to do something that's already been tested in the past. So that's why you'll see certain wavelengths that get researched over and over again, because they've gotten funding and they know that it'll do this, and let's see if it'll also do that. But they're too, like it's the baking soda, but you're missing like all the rest of the stuff that, like in the Rejuvenator quantum healing portion, that's the feeling that you get when you're in the mountains. That's the energy medicine component.
So would that be different than, Leanne? Because we all know that light creates or somehow generates or helps the mitochondria create ATP, which is cellular energy, adenosine triphosphate. So would you say that that's the chemistry behind it, and that is the same among all, or would that component also be different with your light therapy device from the other commercial ones?
Real world again. Now, like you hear this over and over again. A lot of times people have a red light therapy device. They use it or they stand in front of it and they get a little surge of energy, and it will last them for a handful of hours and then it will go away. And I hear this all the time. It's like, I have to keep doing treatments because it feels better temporarily and then it goes away. That's like if a car battery dies, you can take that car battery and you can jumpstart it. So you're like, oh, my battery died. You can jumpstart the battery. If you drive it long enough, it will recharge itself. But I'm just talking about the fact that if you jumpstart a battery and then you can drive it around the block, but if that battery is really depleted, you can get it to work and to run the car like for a while. But as soon as you turn off the car, you can't start the car again. You have to keep jumpstarting it because the battery is so depleted. It won't charge itself up with the alternator anyway, without getting too technical. But so really depleted battery, you can jumpstart it many times and get it and then drive it around the block. But as soon as you turn off the car won't start again because the battery doesn't hold the charge. So it's the same thing with red light, stimulating the mitochondria. It can give it a temporary charge, but it's like it's not holding it because your gas tank is running on fumes. Your life force energy gas tank is there isn't enough to sustain it. So it's just like give boost, but then it goes away. It's kind of like the same if you think of using caffeine. Like, I'm so tired, but I know if I have a cup of coffee, it'll give me a boost of energy. It's artificial, but it's temporary, and then it will wear off. And then you have another cup of coffee and you get to a point where you're so desensitized to the caffeine, it doesn't even work anymore. And that's like people trying to replace putting life force energy gas into their gas tank. They're artificially trying to jumpstart their battery with some caffeine or some red light therapy to give them a boost of energy, but it doesn't last. So what the Rejuvenator does, it puts energy into the system. It actually fills up your life force energy gas tank. That's where you get that amazing feeling. It's like, and people will be like, I hear this all the time. Is it normal to feel addicted to my when they first get it because they're so depleted? And they're just like, I just want to keep doing treatments because it feels so good. It's kind of like, that there's a person in the middle of the desert for a month and they haven't had any water. And then you're like, here's a giant jug of water. And they're just like, oh my God, this tastes amazing. I just want to keep drinking the water because I've been so long without any water.
Great analogy. Yeah.
It took me 10 years of refusing to launch a product. I taught about the science of light therapy. I validated the science of light therapy for 10 years teaching about this stuff, getting invited, doing tons of interviews, and like people then spreading the word, and people,
Winning
bloggers then
awards.
started winning the awards after I launched the Rejuvenator for the work that I was doing in the world. But the stuff prior, like all the teaching stuff, that was just kind of growing exponentially and getting invited to speak at all these conferences and, doing podcasts and whatnot. But even before that, like in the early years, being invited to speak at major medical universities, teaching the medical doctors and medical students about the science behind the healing effects of color and light. So that's kind of where, and I didn't initiate any of that. I didn't choose to, it was again, the paintings in conjunction with my paintings. And they're like, she should give a talk. And they're like, we don't know do a talk. And anyway, the curator's like, do you want to give a talk? And I'm like, oh, I immediately knew, okay, I have to give a talk. I don't want to give a talk. And I'm going to have to learn PowerPoint to be able to make a talk. That's kind of where my mind went. But anyway, that's kind of where the whole thing started. And then it just exploded from there. And I kept getting more and more speaking engagement and all inviting me. I never reached out for any of these. Like never, same thing with my art. I never tried to show my work anywhere. These paintings were now in existence. So people started finding me. And I'm like, all I did was put like 5 or 6 images on a website. I started getting contacted by international curators in Italy, like having nothing to do with the fact that I lived in Italy before. Anyway, all these synchronicities were happening. Wow. So for 10 years, I literally said, I don't, because as the, light therapy started getting out there from my teachings, validating it and connecting the dots and making it make sense for people, because people would watch my videos and they'd be like, oh my God, why does my doctor not know about this? And I'd be, well, they will, they'll eventually get on board. They'll understand. But for 10 years, I had so many people, emailing me, medical doctor friends of mine that were like, you have to make your own device. And I'm like, no, I don't want to manufacture anything. I don't want to sell anything. I just want to teach people about the importance of getting sunlight, getting these healing energies in nature. I wanted to get people reconnected with, like nature, and how if you don't, and you believe all the propaganda from the mainstream media that sunlight is going to kill you and give you cancer, which is a very effective marketing strategy to get people to avoid the sun. Yeah. So I presented all the facts that are like, no, actually you have an inverse probability. The more you avoid sunshine, the more probable it is that you're going to die of anything, including cancer. So anyway, all that stuff that I connected the dots, I made it really easy, even for a child to understand, like even without any understanding of all this stuff. So I simplified it, and then word started spreading. But as light therapy is getting more and more out there, and then people start like trying to capitalize on that, just like when essential oils and aromatherapy started getting a lot of marketing from Young Living and doTERRA, and then everybody and their brother wants to jump on the aromatherapy bandwagon and like sell their version, many of which are completely adulterated, chemical, fake, so the same thing started happening with the light therapy industry. Everybody and their brother, hey, it's like, I can go on Alibaba and buy like an industrial plant grow light and rebrand it as a light therapy device.
And
so
it's
that's
so
what
cheap.
was happening.
Like...
But they have a really cool looking website and, slick, marketing and all that stuff. So, but even before that was happening, I'm getting all these people, they watch my videos and they're like, oh my God, Leanne, I just like, this totally makes sense. But so I get on the internet and I'm trying to find something like a light therapy device. I spent $8,000 on this thing and it didn't work. It not only didn't work, it made me feel worse. So I'm like, what do you recommend? And I'm like, I would love to recommend something to you, because everything that I've tried in terms of like just sheer light therapy, it's like they all had limitations, or they literally were just terrible, like massive levels of EMF output, and all this. I'm just trusting that sooner or later somebody will make something that actually can help people. But I also knew it's like, and people were like, can you like make your own? I'm like, nope, don't want to do that, because for a number of reasons. I didn't want to do anything that felt like going back into engineering. That was a big part of it, which I didn't really realize until years later. It's like, why did I have such a reservation? That was one reason. The other big reason, I don't want to sell anything. I just want to give people information, and then they can take it and do with it what they will. So, and the other thing is, like, if I'm selling a product to go with my teachings, people are going to go, well, you're selling this thing, so why would we believe you? Because you're trying to make us believe. So I'm like, for all of those reasons, it's like, no, I just want to give you this knowledge for free. You do with it what you will. So when the universe, it was like conspiring. I adamantly refused for 10 years. I'm like, I am not selling a light therapy device.
Yeah. We love to get in our own way, right? We love just like inertia takes over. I just want to stay here, and I want to, but I'm in my way.
All the stuff that like, it's going to be a lot of work. I don't want to do. I'm not. People think, oh, you work so much. I only do stuff that I like doing. I don't do stuff I don't like doing. So anyway, but the universe did conspire. There was a number of things that happened in 2016 that kind of pushed me in that direction, because I was getting contacted by these companies that were actually selling devices that were, and like, they're like, we want you to promote our product. I'm like, if you have something that works, I would be happy to tell all the people that follow me about it. You don't have to pay me. They wanted to pay me a lot of money to do that. And then when I'm trying their device, I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to tell you. I don't care how much you want to pay me. I will not tell people to buy this thing, because you are actually going to be making people, because again, these are industrial plant grow lights rebranded as light therapy devices that were like, they're so intense. You're going to make sick people sicker, and massive levels of EMF. Anyway, there were 3 companies back to back that approached me. I finally, and I'm like, now you've not only taken my teachings and you've kind of tried to capitalize on it. And I don't care about that. It's like, make money, sell whatever, but now you're actually harming people. And it was these 3 companies. You are actually going to be making a lot, not everybody, you're going to be making a lot of people sicker with this product that you're selling, or you're going to be harming their vision, or you're going to be making their cancer worse, or whatever. And they don't know, because they have no experience in the healing arts. They're just like, we're riding the wave of this growing trend. That was the catalyst that
made your own.
Mama bear. Yeah. Well, and then I'm like, oh my God, what would be involved in doing this? And then everything just went click, 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 fell into place. And I was I was already slotted since January of 2016, because I was the first person they contacted for that conference.
Yeah.
Wanting to speak. They wanted me to speak.
So happy to have met you there.
And I was already on the book.
Yeah.
It was the perfect synchronicity. They, at the beginning, like, they're like, you're going to be a speaker at the conference. Do you want one of these booths? And I think they had the booths for like $4,500. Like, that's what you could get a booth in the biohacking, the tech hall, they called it. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have I'm not selling anything, but sure, I'll take it. I'll figure out, I'll do some kind of interactive, something where people can experience color, work with color, play with color or something. So all of this other stuff. So it just, like, again, the universe conspiring. I'm like, okay, so what would be involved? I start looking.
So cool.
I'm gonna look for the container. Yes. So anyway, that's together.
I have your first gen, the handheld one. I still have it, Leanne.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that was a completely different form factor than because I'm like, I want something that's going to be big enough. So my jar, as I call it, because I talk about the analogy, like, say this world-class chef makes this amazing pasta sauce, and he's got a restaurant in San Francisco, and people have to travel from all over the world to go to his restaurant in San Francisco to experience his pasta sauce. And they're like, please, can you put your pasta sauce in a jar so I can buy it in, Cincinnati or England or wherever I happen to be in the world. Like, I really don't want to have to fly to San Francisco, like, come and get a session with you, like energy medicine treatment, or can you put your pasta sauce in a jar? So the chef finally says, okay, I'll put my pasta sauce in a jar. I realized, because of being a pragmatic engineer, I don't have to reinvent my jar. I can just get a container that already exists to put my secret sauce, my, healing formulation into. And that's why I was able to expedite the whole process, because I didn't have to create the jar. Well, I chose to not create the jar. I wanted something that was going to cover a large surface area, that I could put my healing formulation, I could make my array, I could put the healing codes into, this device, and I just needed to have the shape, the jar container. So the jar that I found, which is like a silver plastic body, was already being used in residential lighting applications. So I'm like, here, this is the perfect jar. Now I just need to find somebody that can make that, like put all my components together. And then anyway, so that's how it all kind of happened. And then I got the very first ones right before the conference. And then as you saw at the booth,
Yes.
and you could not get up to my booth. And nobody, this was before I even gave my talk, like the Friday and Saturday, because I gave, it was all Friday morning, Friday evening. I gave my talk the very end of the day after, and so I was the last speaker of the day on Saturday. But all day Friday, all day Saturday, our booth was slammed because I had these rejuvenators set up so that you could experience them, feel that, like actually experience them, like this. And this isn't just like therapy. So people could actually feel what it's like, yeah, you can see this light, but it's like way more than that. Anyway, so we were slammed, as you know.
Yes, I remember because it was sold out and
trying to get.
Yeah.
Well, no, I did pre-sales. I did pre-sales on the one that you got, the early iteration, the handheld, that I only had a few of those anyway. Regardless, the body that I'm talking about is the existing 1 foot square.
The panels, which are at my center. I put 6 or 7 together in a bed, in a whole body bed, and it works perfectly. So it treats the brain and then it treats the body at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. Amazing. And that was my recommendation, to set it up along the wall. And then the very first people that did that, it was at some health facility, because I said the best way to do it is along the wall. Yes. So, and then everybody since then has kind of copycatted that. I've got somebody that's doing a double version now. But that's all you need, like, especially when it goes on a corner, and then treat, the whole side, and then the head or the bottoms of the feet, depending on which way you're laying on the bed. And that's the easiest way to do. And I have people that have set that up in their homes. Although in your home, you just really need one. Yeah.
So Leanne, you have a green one now. So is that for sale? And what are the benefits of the green one?
Yeah, the Green Juvenator. I actually, again, these formulations, they're downloads. So the Green Juvenator formulations, there's 2 of them. There's the number 5 and the number 6. They are green and yellow, a combination of green and yellow. That's the visible light that you see with the quantum energy healing code. So it still has the energy medicine component. And these target directly the liver, gallbladder, and the spleen stomach energy systems. So, and those are the 2 energy systems that most often start off where people start getting out of balance, imbalance in spleen stomach energy, which is all about self-nurturing and about, assimilating nutrients from the food, transforming fluids in the body. So things when people are like liver, gallbladder toxicity, liver, gallbladder stuck energy, there's many more symptoms. So I have the Green Juvenator launch video, which is in the Rejuvenator community. That actually turned out to be a really good video for even people that had been in the community using the Rejuvenator for like 3, 4, 5, 6 years, because I launched them almost a year ago, the Green Juvenators. People, when they would watch that video, they're like, oh my God, this finally makes so much of the stuff that you talk about in this community make sense. Because it's hard to get the big picture view when I give as much information as possible about gallbladder energy disruption, blah, 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 so that people can understand the origin and where the symptoms are coming from. But when I created that talk, because those 2 energy systems, liver, gallbladder, are so common in Western society to go out of balance and to start often from childhood, where something will cause a disruption in one of those energy systems that will then overflow into the next one. And then you start having this whole progression of symptoms that eventually affects kidney, bladder energy system. But so the Green Juvenators go directly into those energy systems and correct those imbalances. But you still need, I tell people, it's like the Rejuvenator. I did a whole video specifically about the color red that I just put on my YouTube channel. That's the foundational. So if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that we have, and I made a correlation where it's like the correspondence with how Maslow's hierarchy of needs corresponds with the chakra system. So the root chakra is all about physicality and about survival and about propagation of the species and that stuff. So everything that has to do with your personal survival of your physical body and you in this world and being able, that all has to do with chakra red, which is the red color. So, home security, finances, procreation, all of that having to do with that red foundational energy. So you need to build that strong foundation again before you start going up the pyramid and focusing, because sometimes people are like, oh, I just want to be enlightened and I want to have the spiritual transcendent thing, but then they're eating Velveeta cheese and putting garbage into their physical body. It's like, this is your car in this lifetime. You do need your car. You want to take good care of which your physical body is your car. So you can't just jump to, sixth and seventh chakra enlightenment and, being transcendent when you're abusing your physical car because you need this car. This is, you need the physical car.
Makes sense.
You
And
might think that
people get the car analogy because they take care of their cars more than their own bodies.
I know. That's what I tell people. It's like, especially a lot of men, I talk to, women. Oh, my husband, it's like, he just wants to eat junk food. Well, what does he drive? Oh, he drives a sports car. Like, what does he put? He puts the best gas. He's like, he babies that thing. He changes the oil all the time. Like, he makes sure that he only puts the best stuff into that car, but then he eats McDonald's. And like, this is your main car. Like, your body is your real car in life, and then he's like got all this pain, but his Ferrari looks great, like whatever he's driving. So it's like, but then you start, your physical car in life starts breaking down and it's like, but people have been convinced to believe, well, I just go and take a pill. I go to my doctor, he gives me a pill. Well, that's just suppressing those symptoms. For every symptom you suppress, 10 more come up. And then you have all these problems that come from the drug, which is putting more and more toxins. You're taking these pills every day. You're overloading your system with all this toxins. It's like, but a lot of times people get into the supplements thing and, well, I'm taking supplements. I'm taking all these vitamins. I'm taking superfood supplements. And it's like, all you need it when your physical body and your energy body is working properly, you just need to eat real food and don't, all the stuff. Oh, well, there's no nutrients in the food. You don't need that much. You just need your body will make what it needs, but you don't ever need to take a pill or a potion or anything like that. Real food, as I tell people, the way to know as close to how it comes off the tree, apple from the tree, like the apple, not like turned into an apple pie that you microwave in your oven that has like high fructose corn syrup and a bunch of other garbage and preservative. That's not an apple. That's not anywhere close to a real apple. So that's not like, oh, real apple inside. It doesn't matter what the real apple inside, you've got all that other garbage to go with it. So it's like basically like putting plastic in your body.
So it's how much photon energy is still in your food. Like an real apple would have a lot of photon energy or electron donors compared to one that's processed and made into a McDonald's apple pie. It's no longer an apple.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't even, frankly, I don't think the things that are called apples that are in any kind of McDonald's thing are actually real apples.
Exactly.
Gelatin that's made to look and taste like an apple with artificial flavors and colors,
right?
Texture. Yeah. What's in their chicken. It's like no.
I know.
Anyway, watch some of those videos. Anyway, McDonald's is the antithesis of what real food is. There's nothing real food about anything that McDonald's sells, and it's all toxic sludge. But there's other version, like I hear people, oh, I eat really healthy. Yeah, what do you eat? I eat Amy's organic frozen dinners.
As long as there's the word right.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I drink these orange sodas, but there's real orange juice, like, oh, it says real orange juice. There's like the very last ingredient, after high fructose corn syrup and carbonation and all this, like all these chemicals and artificial colors and these things that are known to be carcinogenic, and then there's like orange juice the very last, like, because there's like a nano micro drop of orange juice in that can. You get, well, I'm drinking real orange juice. So there's so much misinformation and marketing used to manipulate people. It's like, read the labels of anything you're going to eat, but the closer it is to the animal, like even like if you're going to eat meat, then buy a steak. Or hamburger that it's like actual hamburger, but
exactly
meat, like that's not something that's been processed and refined and added like all this stuff. It's like buy the meat even if ideally grass fed, but even if it's not grass fed beef,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
way closer to the original animal than something that's been turned into who knows what, like, Trader Joe's
Exactly.
frozen dinner thing with all this other garbage in it. Although some of their stuff is better, cleaner than others, but some of it long list of garbage. And natural flavors, don't even get me started with that, because it's like the so-called natural
I
flavors.
find that part also very insidious, the greenwashing, where you think that you're buying the best organic stuff and they're so expensive because they're organic certified and all of that, but they're not different, or they're not much better than the commercial stuff that you find. And I find that's even worse. I find that so insidious and devious of that industry.
It is. Yeah. Devious and evil is
evil. Yeah. So Leanne, we've been talking for almost a couple of hours, and I know you're super duper busy.
God, really?
Yeah, we have. It just flows like crazy, and I love gleaning so much wisdom information from you, because you are just this advanced human being already, and you're set out to really teach us to become better humans, which I love. This is what biohacking is all about. So let us know, let our audience know where we can reach you, and where we can purchase your beautiful devices, and where we can glean more information from you.
Well, okay, thank you for all of that. I feel like my halo in my head is now glowing. It's all the praise. That's really time. My website, where all of the color and light information, the Rejuvenator, is catalyticcolor.com. CATALYTIC, like catalytic converter, but it's catalytic color. CATALYTIC COLOR, the American spelling of color. Because even though I'm from Canada, I chose to do the American spelling. And then I realized after I created that .com that a lot of people don't know how to spell catalytic. So that was the name of my South by Southwest interactive lecture when I was invited to speak at that, and I called it catalytic color and something about the brain and flow state, blah blah blah. I can't remember, but that was where the website came from. And then but I have a website that's got all of my paintings on it, that because when I was a professional artist with LeanneVanier.com, LEANNE V as in Victor ENIER.com. You can go to either one. If you go on LeanneVanier.com, there are buttons on there. It will shoot you over to catalyticcolor.com, to learn about the Rejuvenator. Because I learned that people were learning about, from my teachings, and then they would try to find me. And then the first thing that would show up in Google was my LeanneVanier.com website. And they're like, where's the Rejuvenator? And I'm like, okay, so now you can find it on there as well. But catalyticcolor.com will have more information, and like I said, you can get there from either website,
where we can buy.
And then, but the other thing, as you know, when I finally agreed to launch the Rejuvenator, I immediately knew I want to create a community so that people, which is kind of the ultimate nightmare for most companies, because a lot of companies don't want their customers talking to each other. And I'm like, I wanted my customers to be able to talk to me directly, because I give free personalized healing guidance and support along with my apprentices now in the community, so people can learn. I wanted to teach them a whole different paradigm about how to take back power and control over their own health and healing process. So you never have to get mired in the Western medical. Here, you've got a symptom, we're going to give you a drug, and we're going to medicate that symptom. Or God forbid, now you've gotten so bad that we want to give you a surgery, or we want to remove a perfectly good gallbladder, your uterus, or whatever it is that they will talk you into, because it's like, well, you don't need that. You don't need that gallbladder. It's like, well, I can tell you, anybody that I've talked to that had their gallbladder removed, telling their doctor saying, oh, it's, it's a perfectly easy, simple, routine surgery. And then forever after, it's like, realize how important your gallbladder is. And all you need to do is fix the gallbladder. The gallbladder is fixable. It's all healable and reversible. So I teach people all this stuff that they've been brainwashed into believing that you can't heal that here. You just need to take this pill for the rest of your life. You can't heal that. You just need to take this pill, or we're going to cut that thing out because it's causing you problems. You focus on healing the energy system and the energy body physical problems all resolve. So the Rejuvenator puts the Life Force Energy gas, into your gas tank again, opens up the blockages and heals wherever there has been any kind of physical tissue damage, hormonal disruption, or whatever it is that has already manifested in the physical body. So all of that, people, will just get attached to that, symptom, treat a symptom. And you can use the Rejuvenator for that. But if you really want to heal from these things, you want to treat and heal the root of the problem. So there are a handful of protocols. It's like, here, do these 2 protocols, and you're going to heal the root of where all these symptoms are coming from in the first place, and heal the symptoms at the same time. So that's where I created the community. And also so that when people have these amazing healing results, which I already knew before I launched, it's like they're gonna have this profound healing because we're addressing the energy body deficiencies and blockages, as well as treating the symptoms in the physical body. And I want them to be able to, like, you come in and share your story, like, oh my God, I had this amazing, like, I used the Rejuvenator for 3 days, and I, like, all the problems I've had for 10 years are like gone, like those are so common. You hear those stories in there all the time, or especially I love the ones about pets. My veterinarian said I should put my dog down because he was so sick, they had nothing. And then it's like they use the Rejuvenator on the dog, and then the dog is like miraculously healed. And they, they're like miraculous, but it's like, it's because we're focusing on healing the energy root of the issues. So that's where I wanted everybody, you come in, you share in the community, and then everybody's like, if I told you, like, oh, Ellie emailed me and said she had these amazing results, and I tell people in the community, you're going to be like, like, that's impossible. Like, I don't really, you're making that up. You're making that up. So anyway, I wanted it to always come from the horse's mouth. But the big thing is, people get, like, you get to learn how to use this device and how to take back control over your own health and healing process. So it's not just about using the Rejuvenator, it's about all the other stuff, like, get rid of all the garbage and all the stuff that you don't need, those drugs and pharmaceuticals.
This community is like what makes it valuable is because the other companies out there that are so commercialized and being endorsed by all these biohackers, I think you know which brand I'm talking about, they don't have this community. They don't have these testimonials or anecdotal success stories. They don't have any of that. All they have is glitz and glamour and modular sexiness, and this looks good here beside your lamp and here on your door. That's it. But no real healing, no real wisdom, science, quantum physics, and all of that behind it, unlike the Rejuvenator.
Well, and the thing, how a magician does his tricks. He like has moving his hands over here and he's doing something behind the scene, but like they distract you with all this like glam and sciencey sounding stuff. So, they sound like they're talking about. And they distract you from the fact that where are the real world testimonials? And with tons of affiliates, that get paid to push their product to their followers. So it's like all those affiliates that like, here, buy it with my coupon code, and then it's like they're getting a kickback for every single one of those. And you're paying all that extra money for all those kickbacks and all the advertising and the Google ads. I don't do any of that. I don't have affiliate. I've never spent a dime on advertising. Everybody in the Rejuvenator community comes through word of mouth or from following their intuition and hearing about light therapy, and then they go down a rabbit hole, and then they find one of my websites, and they're like, and then the bells go ding ding ding, this is what I need. Or they find one of my YouTube videos and the bells go ding ding ding, this is, their intuition is like, yeah, it's fine, this is what you need. Sometimes I hear from people, I researched red light therapy for a year, and everything I kept finding was like, no, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. And I tell them, when they find out about the Rejuvenator, that means now you're ready for, and sometimes people have to go through that learning curve, learning what they know isn't going to work for them, or maybe they buy these other devices and they feel worse. And then they're like, I know there's still something. And then they find out about the Rejuvenator somehow. And then they're like, now that means now you're ready for true healing. You're ready to let go of, these health issues that you may have, been dealing with for decades in many cases. And now, like, now you're going to get your life back at, 75 years of age for the first time, and that you hear all these amazing, that's what I love hearing. It's like when people are like, I feel like I got my life back. I have my life and I have my health under control, and I'm like thriving, and I'm happy, and I'm not in pain all the time like I used to be, and I'm able to go out and enjoy my life instead of like constantly trying to manage their illness or disease. And
I have
that's, yeah,
tons
that's
of success stories like that. And I refer my clients to you like, hey, what is that red light there? Oh, go to this website and all. And they buy 2 or 3. I think the people I've referred
yeah,
people to you.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Well, thank you for doing that. I always say thank you for paying it forward and going out of your way to help other people, because that's how we thrive as human beings. We thrive when we are helping others, and it doesn't take a lot of energy. It's like, it's not like, well, I'm going to go stand on a corner and hawk this product. No, it's like you're just like, a friend that has a problem. And really where it happens a lot is like people are like, here, borrow my rejuvenator and do this, and then tell me how you feel. And then they're like,
Yes.
a week later they're okay, now give me my rejuvenate. Well, no, it's amazing, can I just keep it? No, it's like, get your own. Like, you can't get the rejuvenator back.
Can I tell you a secret? I've
I have
actually,
so
yeah, I have so many. I've actually lent a couple, and one of them was for energy for more sex. So, and it worked like crazy. And we treat it down there, right? And it's like, and everywhere else, like for the energy, for just rejuvenating the energy. And by golly, it worked. And it's like they don't want to return it to me. It's like, can we borrow this for longer? Yes, of course you can.
Yeah. Well, but then it's such an affordable price that's where people are like, usually when people are like, okay, give me it back, buy your own. I have so many people in the community also that have come and purchased. They have their own, and they discovered the hard way, like if they lend theirs, it's hard to get it back. So they come and they buy like 1 or 2 extras so they can have them as loaner units, just so they can lend them to friends and family members. And then they're like, and then they can keep that one for a month if they want. But then it's like, okay, well, now you really should just get your own. So, and I'm always like, yes, lend them your rejuvenator, let them experience it. People, it's like, that's the proof is in the pudding. So yeah, on my Instagram, there's hundreds, because I'm not very good about updating my website, but I have somebody that, it's like all the testimonials that people share in the group. And then I'm like, please share my testimonial like far and wide. And then those get put on my Instagram. So then you can go to my Instagram and you can see hundreds.
And what is your Instagram?
It's Instagram.com, obviously, / or / whatever you call it. My first and last name, Leanne Venier, Leanne, no period or space, hyphen or anything.
So it's Leanne Venier, no space.
Yeah. Leanne Venier. So all of my social media is the same. Facebook.com /Leanne Venier, LinkedIn.com /Leanne Venier, Twitter.com /Leanne Venier, Instagram.com /Leanne. So I don't I really have to keep things consistent. So because my name is my brand. So in the rejuvenator.
Yes, that's right.
Created and offered to people if they want to buy it. I've never tried to talk people into it. When you're ready for it, So
that's right. Okay. So I'm gonna include all of these links to the show notes of this episode. Leanne, thank you so much for gracing us with your wisdom, your presence, your profound humanness, and for helping humanity become better than yesterday. So thank you so much. And we hope to maybe someday have you again. If you have a new product available or any updates, we would love to invite you again to the podcast.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ellie, for having me. And I always thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world, because you're doing amazing stuff yourself, and you have been for so many years, and even with your podcast and getting to so many people, but the work with your facility and everything, because you're just a shining light in the world, and we need more of us. So the more people we help, the more people we add to the people that are out there helping. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So privileged to be in your community and to be sharing the kind of work that you're doing. Bye.
In biohacking, you control your biology so it doesn't control you. But first, heal your mindset. To biohacking and beyond, see you in the next episode.